So I just can't skip over the Big Bang thing because we gotta stick there. You're there. It sounds like you're watching galaxies form. Do you think you're experiencing time in a whole new way? Like, are you there for a long time, but you're back on Earth?
It was one thought. It was 0 seconds.
I see what you're saying.
If time is itself a thought, if you go outside of time, you see that time is a filter. So if you read Donald Hoffman, the case against being able to see reality, he's a philosopher.
Okay.
We have these filters, and time is a filter. And if you drop that filter, basically everything becomes simultaneous, and it's all in one thought. So it's our minds basically go unlimited.
Do you think we've made time as a way to divorce you from what you're saying is a possibility of reality?
Yeah, that is an excellent question. Yes, we made time and we made space for one purpose. And this gets back to the prodigal son story. It's interesting you're asking this because in Jesus' prodigal son story, okay, the son is in this perfect kingdom, right? And he has everything he needs. He's completely taken care of and he's happy, exactly like my source experience I described, right? But then something gets into him to make him leave, right? So he steps out of the kingdom. Okay, that's an innocent choice. There was no guilt. There wasn't God saying, get out of here, you're bad. There wasn't the son saying, oh, I hate heaven. It was very innocent. You step outside of heaven. Okay, now you are the interpreter. You are the God. Because there's no God there with the ground rules, right? The ground rules of being that I described as source reality. So as the interpreter, you have a choice to make. And the only question is, can you get back in? Okay. At that level of mind, this is unlimited mind, right? And I believe I know the choice from experience was I can't get back in. And I hate myself. And that's unlimited hate. So to answer your question now, what's a way to kind of like manage that unlimited hate? Well, you can split it, you can fragment it into tiny bits, one thought at a time, and you can symbolicate it as well. So it's not the original thing, but it looks like the original thing, like I'm unworthy of getting back in heaven. So you fracture it in time, you fracture it in space, and you fracture it symbolically. And that's where the universe came. This is a big symbolication machine with space-time. And so I experienced the creation of my soul fracturing out of that. And that was a horrible experience, being in that state of unlimited suffering.
Can you describe that? Like, if that's a thing you can describe with details, like where are you? What does it look like? Yeah. And also time-wise, like speaking of time, is this after the Big Bang? Is this before the Big Bang?
This is before the Big Bang. It's before the universe was created. So I was in this space of like unlimited suffering, and it's the specific thought, I'm unworthy of getting back into the kingdom. My father's going to hate me for jumping out, right? And it was unlimited suffering. And I was kind of like just at the edge of that massive suffering. And all of a sudden, I see my soul, which is not me here. It's like all my lifetimes. That was constructed at that point of time. And then I knew, oh, I'm the soul across all these lifetimes, all these parallel lifetimes, making all these choices that are symbolic of that original rejection that I think I will get from my father.
And you're watching this formed how? Like, is there a creator? Is this coming out of just like antimatter? Are you seeing anything?
It's a transition from a space of complete suffering and blackness and nothing, and jumping in to the universe that was just formed with me as a construct and a soul construct, right? It's the construct you experience in an NDE when you see all your lifetimes.
Is it
okay? That's what I experienced.
Is it like a hell, or is hell not a thing that's formed yet in this way you're describing it?
The original thought was hell, for sure. I mean, it was worse than hell. It was worse than any description because it was unlimited suffering. Hell is a symbolication place where all these horrible things happen to you, but it's only symbolic. It's like self-hatred, right? There's nothing outside of you. But this is the fracturing into duality and all of us that are separate, and the fracturing of space into space and the fracturing into time. Those are all fracturing things. So go ahead.
Where does this lead from? You give us the beginning. You're saying you see your soul forge. You're seeing the creation of the galaxies, parallel Earths. Where do we go into the future? Like, I think you've told me you know where you're going to be brought in your next life, right?
Correct, right. So this is like just a flow of time to me and space. And like Shakespeare said, we're all actors, right? And so from that higher level point of view that you're talking about, you're just watching it all flow. And the whole thing was like multiple choice flow. So if you don't learn something, then you're given another chance. That's basically what reincarnation is.
Right.
The issue here, the critical issue, is one has to be completely sane to get back into heaven, for the prodigal son to return, right? You can't return insane into perfection, right? And so this is like a multiple choice test. With every moment you're determining kind of like parallel timelines. Super complicated. I can't hold this in my mind. All I know is I've experienced the flow for myself just at these tiny critical points in time.
Can you describe where you'll be next?
Yeah, I think so. I'm a Pleiadian contactee, and that's take a lot of time to explain that. But they basically told me that I've got a lifetime there. My mom in my next lifetime just contacted me. They're humanity 2.0 or 3.0. They see things all lifetimes, and so they know all their relationships across these lifetimes. She just contacted me and told me.
Let's break down what they are to the best of your ability. So for people who don't know what a Pleiadian is.
So they're very much like you and me. In a human form, you couldn't really tell them apart, other than they're very loving. They're spiritually, they have source experiences like me. So I can completely relate with them. They have advanced psi abilities, the communication's off the chart. They live at peace in nature. I bilocated into their planet, like my next lifetime, during my wedding. It's very peaceful. It's green everywhere.
Sorry, you left your wedding? Carroll, to bilocate at the Pleiadian planet?
No one noticed.
In my next lifetime.
In your next lifetime.
Bilocated into my wedding.
Okay.
And I'm going to marry. Again,
are these things that are by accident? Or you find yourself jumping there? Like,
yeah, it just happens. So there's this universal higher mind that's in control of all this, right? And it has to deal with us symbolically. So part of getting back to the kingdom is having a good dream. So, you can't be all freaked out to return to heaven.
Right.
So this is just the progression. We just get better and better dream lifetimes. And this is my last lifetime will be in the Pleiades.
Really?
So it's just going to be very beautiful. Yes.
Wow. How many lifetimes have you had?
I've had hundreds of lifetimes, maybe 1,000.
Do some stick out? Are some like really good?
Yeah, the ones that are bad, nobody remembers.
You repress them?
It's just a waste of time, right? And this universal higher mind is kind of like guiding the show. And so it it just shows you, oh, you learned this in this past lifetime. Like if you've been around somebody that's knows the truth, then you'll remember that lifetime, and you'll have experiences of it because it's like reinforcing your training.
Can you tell us about another past life that really sticks out to you?
Oh yeah, Jesus. So I was a student of Jesus, and I was Jewish. I lived in Jerusalem. I was trained classically in Athens at the university there. And I was a mystic, a singer, and I just happened to be a very good singer. I was from a middle-class Jewish family in Jerusalem. I knew some of the disciples that were also kind of like mystical singers, and Jesus comes along, and a friend of mine, she was one of the disciples, she said, well, you got to meet this guy. And so I did. He liked my singing. I started hanging out with them. I'd sing like love songs to God, the Song of Solomon, for example, when he would meditate. So I've jumped into those lifetimes, like bilocated into them and experienced it.
You got to explain to us like what Christ was like.
Yeah, totally.
What did he look like?
He was so peaceful being in his presence. It was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I was there at the crucifixion, and this will give you an idea. So, he's carrying the cross. He's going through these angry crowds. They're like being super mean to him. Like a Roman guard just like takes something out and hits him. And he's like a psi weapon in a way. He just broadcast out peace to the entire crowd. And it went from this super angry crowd to being completely quiet. He'd like overridden everybody's consciousness with this massive, peaceful presence. It was completely mind-blowing. And then it all started back up again, and he went on. So he's just doing that kind of like for training purposes.
When you're there, in your perception of that time, are you knowing he's the Son of God? Are you like, what is your perception of Christ?
My perception is like, who is this guy? Like, wow. This guy is amazing. The Roman Empire was a time of a lot of suffering. It was harsh and short, dog-eat-dog world. And to have that experience completely override the zeitgeist of that time was just completely mind-blowing. So I knew he knew something. He was connected to something greater. We didn't know what, it was just a mystery to us how this guy did this.
Are there things that you experienced from back then or any other past life that you think we get wrong today?
Yeah, just the experience of source, which he understood. He was going in and out of it, I believe. It's complete. There's completeness. This is like one of the most important concepts of reality. And I think we've got that wrong. We think heaven or the kingdom is incomplete, and wholeness as well is not whole. It's still fractured a little bit in some way or other. So I think most modern philosophies don't really get the completeness of the wholeness. And that they absolutely don't get that the one agenda of God is happiness or happiness. It would just make a huge difference in the way people spoke about things and their point of view and their goals and where they're going. It's well-beingness for all, and that's a striking difference from the Pleiadians. When you see a Pleiadian that's kind of like at this higher spiritual level, the first thing they say to you is "be well," and when they're talking to you, they're just thinking of your well-beingness. And when they leave, they say, "Be well."
Right.
So that's a very different philosophy than Earth-based philosophies. And it's that's something I think we got wrong.
So you experienced Christ, and then you told us in the beginning of the show you were 3 looking at images of Christ and compelled to know more. Is that a connection there? Are you, as a 3-year-old, totally, not realizing that you had a past
lives? Yeah, if you've been around Jesus and been in his presence for length of time, you remember that across lifetimes. It's directed kind of like by the universal higher mind. That's your training, and you'll never forget it. You can't. I have 100 friends that were in Jesus's lifetime, and they're all like fanatical about this stuff.
Are we representing Jesus well when it comes to art and imagery?
The ideas there, like if you look at Akian Flamerick, she was like this child prodigy. I think she did the Prince of Peace at age 8, and that's a very good representation. But you know, she's been in she's been around Jesus, obviously, and been around some highly spiritual people, and all that is coming through her. Yeah, so that would be one example. There's an example where Jesus showed up for somebody. I forget what the book is, but the painting of Jesus is in Fort Worth, Texas, in a church there. I forget the name, though.
Interesting.
And it's good. It's good, too.
You said you were a Christian for a long time, and how was it that, if you have memory of Christ in a past life, that you stopped being Christian after seeing him in a past life?
Well, I stopped in this lifetime just because I didn't think the completeness problem. I wasn't seeing in the philosophies of the church I was at, I wasn't seeing the idea that we're completely taken care of. There was a concept of hell and suffering and punishment, and that's incomplete, right? My understanding just from heaven was everybody's there, and my understanding from all these lifetimes and how they all interact is you always get another chance. It's like this choice maze, right? And if you make the wrong choice, well, you get another chance, and eventually people get tired of dying and being reborn, and they get tired of all the suffering and all the diseases and everything here. So it's kind of inevitable that people eventually choose the truth of God and seeing all of life like that.
You talk about future past lives, or future lives, rather. Is there a point where that just runs out? Like, is there an event that stops everything? Is there an Armageddon event, or do things just keep repeating? And this is a waiting room for everyone who is stubborn, I guess.
Yeah, we're all stubborn. There's no difference really between any of us. I just have had more lives. You wouldn't want to see me in past lives. It keeps repeating until everybody kind of wakes up from the dream. And then the whole thing disappears. Like Shakespeare said, in The Tempest, that famous thing, we're all actors on the stage, and the universe is this little globe that all the actors are dancing upon, but it just disappears into thin air.
I think it's
obviously Shakespeare had experienced what I'm talking about.
Right. And you wrote that when you were talking about your breakdown of the realms.